Hey, hello and welcome. In this video today, we're going to look at a huge red flag about how millions of people all over the world give automatic trust to people who are claiming that they are an expert in their field. Now, obviously, this can be in many areas in a person's life. It could be in the medical field. It could be when they're getting their car repaired, or it could be hiring a contractor to do repairs on their home. But the two main areas that I focus on myself is my own background. Now, I was a personal trainer in health clubs for over 15 years, and since 2008, I've been a professional trauma therapist. I work on trauma recovery and emotional re-regulation, and also focus heavily on emotionally manipulative behavior. Now, the one strapline I always say around emotionally manipulative behavior is it hides in plain sight. It poses as one thing, but is actually something completely different, which is exactly what we're going to talk about in this video. Now, we can see an ever-growing number of people online. They get their reels, they get their videos, they get their websites. They promise guaranteed results. They promise you that quick fix. They promise you that they know what they're talking about. The content or information in these videos is for educational and informational purposes only. It is your responsibility what you do with this information. And it could be that they've got some fancy title, or it could be that they've got a really flash website. Or, and this is a big red flag, sometimes they've got hundreds of thousands of followers, which may seem like, well, if everybody else is following them, they must be right. Well, that's not the truth. Just because hundreds of thousands of people may follow somebody online does not necessarily mean that they know what they're talking about. It just might mean that they sound like they know what they're talking about, or they're convincing enough other people that they're right, that people start to believe that. So what we're going to work through in this video is a three-step process. We've got point number one, which is the person has a challenge or a problem in their life. For me, working in fitness or mental health, it could be a person wanting to lose weight or get fit or find the right nutrition for them to overcome ill health. Or in the mental health world, it could be overcoming anxiety or shame so they can live the life that they want with that inner peace. So that's the first part. The person has a challenge or a problem in their life. The second part is somebody else provides the solution or the advice so they can solve that problem. That's number two. So we've got a person who has a challenge, number one, and then another person provides a solution or the advice to solve that challenge that that person has. That's number two. And then point number three is where that person integrates that information in their life and solves the challenge, thereby closing the loop. So 1, 2, 3, challenge, solution, solve. However, that leads to the question of what if that person who is claiming that they are the authority, who has millions of followers, may look a certain way, may have that charisma, is not actually as expert as they claim. Now, I'm going to share a story from one of my courses, which is all about the risks that can happen if we just give automatic authority to another person. And sometimes the absolute disastrous effects that it can have on a person's life. But then again, not only that person's life, but sometimes everybody else around them. So the story is as follows. It's a young man called Joe. Joe Bloggs, fictitious character. And Joe lives in a very small village on the outskirts of the big city. Now, Joe was thirsting for life. He wanted to expand his wings and grow and move to the big city so he could live life. But the only thing was that in this village, there was no education system. So what Joe did is he turned to his dad and his mom and he said, please, can you help me? I want to learn, get qualifications so I can move to the big city and live my life. Now, Joe's parents loved him very much. So what they did is they reached out and found the best tutor they possibly could. And it didn't matter about money. They even put themselves in debt to help Joe out. And then within a week, this very charismatic tutor showed up and announced himself that he will be the one that educates Joe to get him to the big city. Well, this training system that Joe undertook lasted exactly a year. And the one thing that the tutor said is that I will teach you, Joe, but you cannot ask questions. You just must trust what I say. Trust the process. Now, Joe was an obedient student, and obviously, why wouldn't he trust his tutor? Because he was an authority after all. So anyway, the training lasted a year, and Joe was a very diligent student. He did everything that was asked of him. And at the end of the year, the tutor said, I'm very proud of you, and you've done really, really well. And here is your bright, shiny new qualification, so you can move to the big city. Now, if you've ever been in that situation where you've trusted somebody and you've been given that qualification, you've been given that word, you know how good it can feel. That is, providing it's the right information. Well, anyway, that day, Joe packed his bags and he moved to the big city. He emptied his bank account of all his savings and got somewhere to live, and he was really, really excited. He was pacing up and down the streets and looking for a job. He was showing everybody his bright, shiny qualification, and he knew in his heart that sooner or later somebody would employ him. And then by fortune, on the very first day, he got a job as a builder's merchant and started the very next day. Well, Joe turned up to work and he was absolutely beaming. Well, this for Joe was an absolute dream come true. He was living in the big city, he'd got a job, and he was believing in every way that he was going to make new friends and live the life that he wanted. He worked very hard on that very first day and gave it absolutely everything. And then by the 5 o'clock whistle, he said goodbye to all his new friends and then went home for a very sound night's sleep. However, when Joe went to work the very next day with that smile still beaming on his face, something unfortunately took a turn for the worst. As soon as he walked into the office, the owner of the company was absolutely livid with Joe. He screamed at him as soon as he walked into the door, "Joe, get in the office now." And Joe was really shocked. He didn't understand because he'd done everything right. All of his education he'd put into practice in that workplace. The owner was livid. He said, "Joe, everything you did yesterday was completely wrong. You've cost us thousands of pounds. You've ruined us. It's going to take us years to get back on track after your mistakes." And by this, Joe was absolutely furious. "How dare you speak to me like that? I'm educated. I know what I'm talking about." And the owner said, "Okay then, Joe, what's 2 plus 2? And Joe went, 5, obviously. And by that, Joe lost his job immediately. He was confused though, because to his belief, everything that he'd been doing was exactly what the tutor had trained him to do. Because of the loss of his job, he had no savings left, and he had to take that very long, cold, lonely journey home back to the village that he first came from. Absolutely devastated. Now, can you imagine how that would feel for Joe? He did everything he was taught. He trusted his tutor, but unfortunately, the information was not correct. So my question to you is this: have you ever been in Joe's situation? Have you ever trusted a coach, trainer, or therapist to guide you along the way, but the information that they shared to you, even though they were so convincing in every way that it was right, did not work for you? Did you blame yourself? Because a lot of people do. You see, the area, especially around mental health, is very complex. It's not complicated because there is a structure, but it's complex. There are many moving parts. And if somebody's claiming that they are an authority and you take that advice, you could be putting that advice into your life for weeks, months, or even years and end up spinning your wheels, doing your very best, but it's just not the correct information for you at that time. Keep in mind all the way through what we discussed earlier in the video: challenge, solution, solve. If somebody claiming that they're an authority is not giving you the correct information, you will never be able to solve the equation. Because, just like Joe, you might be being taught 2 plus 2 is 5. So what I'd suggest is, if you follow anybody online, and I always say to anybody watching any of my videos to do the same as well, run everything through your own filter. Don't just take somebody's word for it. But if there is anybody else online that you follow and you follow their videos and you take their advice, take a broader picture. look at their website, look at every video. Maybe if they're on a few groups on social media, ask what groups are they on and why. Is there anything in their tone of voice or the way they act, or if they're in different interviews maybe, are they acting in different ways? Run everything through your filter and then write it all down and ask yourself, is what this person's teaching really genuine and can provide that solution? Because that's all we follow people for. We're looking for a solution to move our lives forward. So to summarize this video, the one point I want you to keep in mind at all times is don't just give automatic trust to somebody because of their social appearance. I'm going through a double hip replacement at the moment, and when I first found out that I needed that replacement doing, I did a lot of research and found one of the best surgeons that I could and went with them. But I did weeks worth of research and spoke to other people who'd been with that particular surgeon and looked online for every ounce of information, and even made about 30 different phone calls to speak to other people as well, because it's such a big part of my life. I'm not just going to give automatic authority to somebody I don't know. Okay, so I hope this video has been of help in raising awareness of automatically giving trust to somebody without asking any questions. If you are listening to other people out there to guide you in any way, shape and form to find that solution, do your research. It could save you years of time. And always keep in mind, you don't want to end up like poor Joe did in the story we just went through.